Well, hello, everyone. Happy Christmas Eve again. My man is on a long call with his uh, the random things that I have sitting at this desk with his parents. So I'm gonna read. You know what? He's been on the call for so long. I should have started reading earlier, but I didn't. He'll probably get off the phone in 5 minutes. But okay, I'm trying to upload another video for Silver Screen Holidays. This one's not going to have I don't think it's going to have an intro. It's not going to have anything because I'm trying to slip past the copyright, okay? So I'm not going to talk in front of it. I'm not doing anything. It's just going to have, I'm not even putting the title on it. We can meet in the comments and talk about the title, okay? All right. I'm just going to read some of this. Let me just have a look-see. And, get this going. Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna get that going. It'll be up in the wee hours, you know. And then I'm gonna try to do some other things. Okay, but firstly, let's read. Okay. Chapter 6 is entitled Saying It with Flowers. They came out of the blue. 24 beautiful red roses set in a green sponge oasis inside a wicker basket, the whole wrapped in cellophane and tied round with pink ribbon. It was delivered to my office off Finsbury Circus by special messenger. My secretary Sam brought the basket into my office and laid it on my desk with a smile. "Looks like you've got an admirer," she said. There was a card attached. "Very best wishes for the exciting new project. I'm sure it will work. Love, Ronald." Well, well. Love Ronald? I raised a mental eyebrow at such early familiarity, particularly coming from an apparent scion of old-world courtesy and formality. But I would soon learn a thing or two about Ronald. As it was now obvious I should call him. I rang him at once. "Thank you so much for the flowers, Ronald. They're absolutely beautiful." "I'm glad you like them," he responded. "It was a very sweet thought," I said. There was the slightest of pauses. Then Ronald said, "I have to fly to America very soon for a polo tournament. Before I go, I wonder if you'd care to join me for lunch at Claridge's so we can discuss your own project? Also, it will give us a chance to get to know each other better, since we are going to be working together so closely." "I'd love to," I said. I thought, what a warm person, so welcoming, charming, and harmless. It seemed like a splendid idea. Aloud, I said, "Claridge's, did you say?" "Yes," he said. "They know me there. I have my regular table. Go to the front desk and tell them who you are. Shall we say Friday at 1 o'clock? You know what I was thinking? So you know how I said I think there's a little bit of insecurity? I still stand by that because I feel like she said that she missed her father her whole life. Okay, so she's been longing for her father. And I feel, and she did say that she was trying to prove herself by being very, very smart. And it's like she still is trying to prove herself by being very, very smart. So even though she recognizes that, it's like she didn't recognize it enough to notice that she tells us over and over again about how intelligent she was, right? So it's like she's still trying to earn her place in the world. And who better for Ronald Ferguson to start to pursue than a young woman with a failed marriage who is desperate for her father, right? Like she was prime rib. I'm hungry. She was the perfect candidate, you know? Because I'm saying, who the heck could go to bed with Ron? You know what? You could go to bed with a dog-faced man. If he was charming and intelligent and could carry conversation, it was funny and engaging, and just happened to be the age of your father when you are so desperately longing for paternal attention. Doesn't it all make sense? Poor thing. Okay. "Yes," he said, "they know me there, blah, blah, blah." My mind was on the workload ahead, getting the tournament off the starting block and into the race, and I gave Major Ferguson a little further thought until Friday. I had never had to drum up sponsorship for anything in my life before, and I was facing a blank sheet with, I must admit, an equally blank stare. First step, how many teams do I want? It had to be a truly international event, and that meant teams from all the obvious polo-playing countries and maybe some from the lesser-known ones. I counted them off: England, America, Argentina, Australia. What about Kenya or South Africa? Ronald's office sent me a list of every polo club in the world, and they wrote off to every single one of them to ask if they would be interested in entering a team of women players. I even gave them a date: Tuesday 13 August to Sunday 18 August 1991. To my surprise and delight, the replies started to come back thick and fast. My deepest apprehension, that I would never be able to amass an international field and would be left with a half-baked entry list, proved groundless. The in-tray started filling with enthusiastic inquiries and actual entries. My first step was to form a committee. Well, everyone does when they're organizing anything, don't they? More fool me, as I would eventually find out. With a handful of hard workers, I could have run the whole thing myself. As it was, the poison started to flow as the committee grew ever larger and more unwieldy. Isn't that the truth? Though, unfortunately, there were enough genuine workers, rather than shirkers, who really gave their time and energies in abundance to make it work. In the end, we assembled 12 teams from England, Scotland, France, Italy, Spain, Kenya, Australia, Pakistan, Argentina, and from America, California, Boston, and Denver. I called them my angels on horseback, though in the heat of battle, as I had seen with my own eyes in the dust of Santa Barbara, they could be right she-devils when roused. Meantime, I had a date to keep with the Duchess of York's father. What do you think? Do you think that you could be wooed by Ron Ferguson? What do you think? There, but for the grace of God, go I. On that mid-November Friday, I hailed a taxi in Finsbury Circus. "Claridge's, please," I said, and felt quite grand. I didn't have to add the words Brook Street. Every taxi driver in London knows it, or if they don't, they haven't done the knowledge. I stared out the window at the bustling lunch-hour streets as the taxi took me through London Wall, Holborn, and on through the West End into Mayfair until we pulled up outside the swing doors of Claridge's. A top-hatted doorman opened the cab door for me and wished me good day. Under the twin flags of the Union Jack and the Stars and Stripes, I entered for the first time the portals of one of the world's legendary hotels, a monument to tradition and impeccable service. It was just the sort of place, I reflected as I turned left inside the lobby and headed for the front desk, that Major Ferguson, the complete Englishman, would surely choose. I gave my name to the elderly concierge at the desk, and he replied at once, "Ah, yes, Miss Player, this way. Major Ferguson is here already." He hadn't even consulted a list or looked at a piece of paper. In the causerie. The causerie in Claridge's is located by the majestic, curving staircase leading into the lobby lounge, and is less formal than the main restaurant. A cozy dining area with an intimate atmosphere, it makes an ideal meeting place for people with a lot to talk about in relaxing surroundings. Causerie being the French for chat. Can you hear him? Ronald Ferguson was waiting for me in a corner alcove. He rose, a towering figure immaculate in a navy blazer and gray flannels, which had the kind of crease you would cut your finger on. His smile lit up his craggy features as he gestured for me to join him. Come in, my dear. Do sit down." His usual table was discreet, with a view of the room that took in most of the diners, but somehow precluded them from staring back. I looked around. "You know, Sarah and I always have this table when we lunch here. It's help yourself to start with, but they'll do anything you want. And we almost always have a specially prepared dish when we come here. Scampi. Do you like scampi?" I nodded. I love food, and scampi was high on my list of favorites. He seemed pleased to hear it and beamed approvingly. But first we got up and helped ourselves from a large smorgasbord table, which is the causerie's main feature. Anything from smoked eel to various pâtés seemed to be on offer, and as I returned to our table with my plate, I found myself thinking, my God, here I am sitting in Claridge's with the father of the Queen's daughter-in-law. We started talking. But first Ronald called for the wine list, and we chose something fusé. Crisp and dry, and perfect with what we were eating. I read much later that he was supposed to be a teetotal. Well, he may have been once, but not with me. If he had been, I wonder if our affair would have ever happened. We raised the first glass to each other, to the tournament, and to the future. Leslie, the Major said, you are a very unusual little lady. I must admit you do mystify me somewhat. Oh, he is a playa. He knows the rule book, doesn't he? Listen, that's the oldest trick in the book. And you don't know it until you're a woman of a certain age. Is that the first thing that a man can do to get a woman to start yapping and being like, is to be like, oh, I'm so curious about you. Oh, there's just something about you. I just can't figure you out. And then she's like, oh yes, I'm very mysterious. And it just hits your ego. Like, what woman in the whole world doesn't like to be told that they're slightly mystifying and mysterious, and that he's just racking his brain trying to figure you out? Please. Come on. The thing is, there's no way that a man of his age couldn't figure out a woman of her age. But of course. All right. Really? I said, trying not to sound coy. Yes, he went on. I'm sorry if I'm embarrassing you, but I feel as if I've known you for years. He's just one after the other. And all of a sudden he was talking about polo, and I sat riveted as the Major embarked on his most cherished subject with a passion and knowledge I had seldom heard from any man in my life. It kept me glued to my chair, virtually unaware of what I was eating or drinking, however delicious, or of time passing. I can never understand why so many people think we're a bunch of millionaire namby-pambies standing around swigging champagne or trotting around a field chasing a ball. A grin took away the sting of the words. It's very dangerous, very rough, but my God, it gets the adrenaline going. I think it's the most exciting sport on the planet. I love it all. The horses, the galloping, the cavalry charges, the sheer thunder and guts of it. When you're out there, you can forget all your worries. He paused ever so briefly. Well, almost forget them. You know, I've been playing for 35 years. I stumbled on it by accident. I joined the lifeguards and was sent to the Canal Zone in 1954. One day, the CO said, "Right, Ferguson, you're playing polo tomorrow." I'd always liked ball games, but this one was one sport that had it all: horses and a ball. When did you first learn to ride? I inquired. My parents put me on a pony when I was 6 months old, strapped into a basket. How about you? I gather you do ride. Yes, but nowhere in your league, I laughed. I was 3. I told them about the country lanes in Berkshire and Sussex and the gymkhanas I had been put into as a little girl. The Major chuckled gruffly. God, I remember those. I had a horrid little Shetland pony called Flying Flash, and he used to stop dead at every jump. That first lunch went by in a flying flash. Before I knew it, was time. The time was 3 o'clock, and we seemed hardly to have started. I looked at my watch in disbelief. I've got to go. I never realized the time. Have you? Said Ronald regretfully. He shook his craggy head. Shame. But perhaps we can do this again. I would like that, I told him. I'd like that very much. It's been wonderful to have someone to talk to, he said. I must tell Sarah all about you. It's been wonderful to have someone to talk to. Oh, yes, let's not forget he has a wife at home. And how many children? He's got 2 daughters. That just... Bleh. Oh, I said, slightly taken aback. That would be nice. I'd like to meet her. You will, said the Major. I'll make sure of that. I think you two will get along famously. He leaned forward confidentially. We have a very close relationship. We're on the phone to one another practically every day. She tells me everything that happens in that household, and I tell her everything that happens to me. She's a very strong personality, you know. Andrew leans on her. Really? I raised an eyebrow at this open and unexpected revelation on a first meeting. Yes, said Ronald. He's scared stiff of losing her. I put that down to insecurity. Sarah often seems more like a mother to him, telling him to do this and do that. Sometimes I don't know how he stands it. But he asked for it when he married her. She's a very free spirit. I think that's what he found so fascinating about her. That conversation at Claridge's was my first hint of the incredible vein of incaution that runs through the Ferguson bloodstream like fool's gold. I was about to witness it turn the very foundations of the House of York into shifting sands that would lead to ruin and despair. "Don't mind my asking," I said, "but why did she marry him?" "Well," the Major answered, "she's either in love with Andrew or in love with the royal family, and I think it's the latter." He stood up to make way for me, and once again I was struck by his old-world gallantry, the kind that sadly belongs to a lost era. He was flying off to America, but we agreed to meet again immediately on his return in the following week. "Same place," said Ronald, indicating his corner table. "Definitely," I agreed. "I love it here." As we waited on the pavement under the fluttering flags while the doorman found us taxis, the Major turned to me. "Leslie, would you consider it an inconvenience if I were to call you from America, just to chat about work, or anything, really?" "Of course not. I'd love to hear from you." A smile that was almost relief lit up his face. "That's splendid. It's just that, well, I get quite lonely out there, and it would be nice to know there's someone I can talk to." "What about your wife?" "What about your wife?" Oh my God. He had a young little wife at home, didn't he? Weren't they already married by this point? I don't understand. I don't have my phone near me, or I would look it up. Someone look it up. So this is happening in 1991, I very do believe. And wasn't he already married by this point? Was he? Or was it afterwards? I'm so confused. No. He was married because it said that she was his mistress. It's like, you got a young thing at home. Go home. Call your wife. Good Lord. All right. "Of course," I said again. "I'll look forward to it." Major Ferguson gave me a polite peck on the cheek, handed me into the back of the cab, and waved farewell. I looked through the rear window rear window to watch his tall figure dwindle into the distance as the taxi headed into New Bond Street and back towards the city. It was only as I settled in my seat to stare unseeingly out at the busy pavements that the thought came to me. Hasn't he got anyone else to talk to and he's lonely? What about his wife? The next time we met, I found out. Do I dare try the next chapter? Is that man of mine still going to be on the phone? Oh! Guys. Okay, if he comes out, I'm just going to have to cut it off. Okay. Chapter 7 is Teen Sympathy. I can't tell if he's still on the phone. He is, okay. Same place, same time. Over the following weeks, I got used to Major Ronald Ferguson ending his phone calls with those words, and I always felt my heart lift when I heard them. As with so many affairs, it is the first light-hearted, carefree weeks that are the best, before words like responsibility and, worse, possessiveness creep in and muddy the waters. Oh yes, that's what muddies the waters, not the affair itself. Of course, neither of us saw it at first. Okay. Baloney. He knew what he was doing. He saw it. You didn't see it. Leslie. Of course, neither of us saw it at first. I failed to recognize the danger signals. Ronald seemed oblivious of what was happening to us, or the consequences. And in the end, when disaster struck, he hardly seemed to care, riding his own one-man cavalry charge into the valley to come to grief on the guns of gossip and scandal. But in those first luncheon meetings, as we began to know and respect each other, our relationship deepened subtly, inexorably and irrevocably, until, too late, and I realized what we had done to one another. If there's one thing I hate more than anything in the world, it's like when people try to make cheating this very deep thing. And I think sometimes it's deep for one person. Like one person is philosophizing and, creating poetry, and the other person is just filling their boots. And we can guess which one. Ronald is filling his boots. He knew from day one. He's a philanderer. He's been around. He knows the playbook, like I said before. He wrote it. Okay. It was always scampi for him. Well, I rang the changes on the menu, and we talked. How we talked. I found myself unbending to this rugged, aristocratic Englishman whose veneer disguised an essentially solitary man beset by his own personal problems, who simply needed to talk to a sympathetic listener. "I've got a lot of things on my mind," he said. "I'm worried about Sarah. She just isn't as happy as she should be. We normally speak on the phone 2 or 3 times a day, and I can't wait to hear from her. We're so very close. We tell each other everything." "Okay, everything?" I interrupted. He nodded. "But I haven't heard from her for days. What I notice about the younger royals is that they do things and take the consequences afterwards. Sarah can be like that. She's very headstrong. And she's so special that I hate it when she's unhappy." Suddenly, Ronald was talking about his marriage, and the one before. I had heard of the breakup when his first wife, Susan, caused a huge scandal in horsey circuits in 1974 by running off with Argentina's top polo player, Hector Barrantes, leaving Ronald alone after 18 years of marriage to bring up their 2 daughters, Sarah and Jane. No wonder father and daughter were so close, I thought. For what it was worth, Ronald generously mentioned that in those days Hector had a handicap of 8 while he was a 5, which presumably meant Hector was the better player. I had also read a story that Susan had become fed up with her husband's alleged philandering, and that the last straw was when he had a fling with a colonel's daughter. But oddly, I got the feeling now that Ronald still had a tender spot for Susan 1. Of course, men like this always do. Always do, especially when they leave. Then they're like, "I'll carry the torch forever." There's something so enticing to a man about a woman who leaves him. Okay. Susan 1. His second wife is also called Sue, and she is the daughter of a wealthy Norfolk farmer, although he refers to her as Mrs. F. II. She is an attractive blonde, 15 years his junior, whom he married 3 years after the shattering elopement. Even on the day of their divorce, he revealed to me. He phoned her and pleaded, "Please don't do it." But she went ahead, and it was Ronald who became the single parent, looking after his 2 feisty teenagers in Dummer Down Farm, in the Doomsday village of Dummer, located a few miles off the M3 in Hampshire, in the beautiful old farmhouse which had been his family home for more than half a century. Sister Jane is a polo-playing daughter. She married and went to Australia, and now, as Jane Mackham, is good enough to play in the Aussie team. I stayed silent as the floodgates of Ronald's memory opened, and the secret hopes, frustrations, and longings of this intensely private man poured out. "I was very much in love with her," Ronald said, "but I think I married too young. I was very inexperienced, and I didn't know how to treat a woman. Of course, I do—" You still don't. This is what is blowing my mind, is she's obviously just young and naive, because this guy is playing on like, oh, he's so vulnerable. Oh, he's so lonely. Oh, he needs someone to talk to. Forget about the wife at home that he could be pouring his heart and soul out to, and that's whom he should be doing it to, with, whatever. She's like, oh, he's intensely private. No, he's not. He be yapping. Lord. I didn't know how to treat a woman. How are you treating your wife right now, sir? Good grief. Of course, I do love my children enormously. My other children enormously. In fact, they're keeping my marriage together. The youngsters he was talking about were Andrew, who was 11, Alice, 9, and little Eliza, aged 5 from his second marriage. I was starting to get goosebumps. The man sitting next to me had traveled the world, moved in the rarest circles of power and privilege, rubbed shoulders with kings and queens and princes, and here he was confessing his innermost thoughts to me after less than a handful of meetings. Red flag. The fact that I knew so little about him obviously helped. We were like that stranger you meet on the plane, except that the journey was destined to last for months. How could he be so lonely? It isn't that my wife doesn't understand me, he said with a wry smile. If anything, she probably understands me too much. But Mrs. F. II doesn't like traveling with me when I go on these polo jaunts. She doesn't even like polo. Oh, poor baby. Poor baby's wife doesn't like polo. Oh, no. Oh, you're so misunderstood. Oh. Ugh. I had the impression his marriage had become as dry as the autumn leaves blowing in the wind through Berkeley Square outside. Oh, I'm sure you did, because he gave you that impression. That's the thing, is that the other woman always is like, You don't know what it's like at home. He could be having a time at home, too. You don't have a clue. Oh, my word. But of course, the other woman always wants to feel like she is breathing life back into him, that the no good wife of his has stolen his soul and made him a shell of the man he used to be. He's just waiting for her kiss of life to wake him up and bring him back into the real world. Gross. I was right. Ronald would confirm it during our pillow talk, when our relationship had grown beyond friendship and into something deeper and more dangerous. It's just that I've always found it hard to find people to talk to, he said at one point. And even though we hardly know each other, I already feel like I'm very close to you. This is driving me bonkers. A faint flush spread over his features, and I could see it was uncomfortable for him to be talking about his feelings like this. This girl is so naive. Even when she's writing this book, she's naive. Poor thing. It wasn't quite the same as meeting a stranger on a plane or train, revealing your innermost secrets to them, knowing you'll never meet again. Ronald and I were more than two ships passing in the night. We were on a collision course. I said gently, Ronald, let me tell you some things about myself and my background. It hasn't been all roses for me either. Perhaps you'll understand me better. You will also know things about me that are private, and maybe then you'll feel better about sharing some things of your own life with me. I'm not about to make judgments on somebody else, I promise you. Carefully, I went through the history of my own marriage, spelling out the pressure points where it had gone sour, not sparing myself any of the gory details, except for my suicide attempt, or gesture of despair, if that's what it was, which, for some reason, I did not reveal. I told him about the closure of the company, the torment I had endured watching 7 years of hard work and hope simply disappear, as if they had never happened. I even mentioned the boyfriends I had known. At the end, I sat back and looked at Ronald with a kind of wonder. I had told him far more than I had ever intended, yet in an exhausted way I felt uplifted. I was drained of a burden I had been carrying around like a sack of sand the old tramp carts around in Samuel Beckett's play Waiting for Godfoot. Godot? Godfoot? Where did I get Godfoot? Oh, I'm sorry. Godot? I don't know. All I can think of is the British show Waiting for God, about the two in the nursing home. Oh, it's hilarious. All he had to do was let go. And that long afternoon, I had let go. Immediately, the atmosphere at the table lightened. We had been intense enough for one day. Ronald called for more wine, and now his features softened as he recalled the wedding day in that summer of 1986, when he gave his daughter Sarah into matrimony with Prince Andrew in a ceremony at Westminster Abbey, which was televised across the globe. What a wonderful day that was, he reminisced. I sat next to the Queen in an open coach along the Mall, and I remember she wore ice blue and a beautiful string of pearls. The sun was out. People were cheering. It was unforgettable. He talked about being polo manager to Prince Charles. He has been a good friend and very supportive, said Ronald. I took it he was referring to polo in general, but at our next meeting the Major would elaborate on the unpleasantness at the Guards Club following that messy little business at a certain massage parlor. But now he was snorting. How dare people suggest the POW isn't aggressive? The initials POW for the Prince of Wales would become our shorthand for the plans for the tournament as the plans for the tournament progressed, and we approached Charles to ask him to write a personal message on the souvenir program. I'm always having to warn him to steady up when he's charging in like a bat out of hell. Don't let anyone doubt that man's courage. I had been asked more than once if I would go easy on him if we were on a head-on collision course, and I always give the same answer. It's every man for himself, and the only person I'd be thinking about would be me. One of my writers pointed out that he didn't want to make a name for himself by killing the heir to the throne, but when you're out there at full pelt, that isn't usually the first thing that comes to mind. One time I saw him playing, and a rival shouted, "Take the man!" to a teammate. Next thing, Charles had been barged clean off of his saddle into the grass. Remembering how the future monarch had broken his arm in a bad polo fall, I couldn't help but asking, "How often have you been hurt?" "Too often," retorted the Major, not without some pride. One paper even called me a walking miracle. They printed a picture of me with little arrows pointing to the fractures. He jabbed a knobby finger at various parts of his anatomy. My nose has been broken twice by the ball, likewise a fractured jaw. I lost my front teeth the same way, even wearing a grid mask, and now they're screwed into my gums. 3 cracked ribs, all my fingers have been broken at some time, and a few toes crushed by the brutes trampling on me. He was 59, he told me, but had no plans to dismount from the saddle and leave competitive playing. Even if I'm stiffening up a little and can't go bulldozing in like I used to, it can still be pretty hairy. The worst moment for me was when I broke my back in a bad fall of 1970. I actually landed on my head. I was paralyzed on my left side for 2 months, and they told me I'd never ride again, but I came through. They can't keep an old warhorse down. In that first month, we met several times at Claridge's, finally varying between lunch and afternoon tea served in the lounge. We would find a quiet corner and sink into armchairs as if we were in some London nightclub. Some London club. And still we talked. Ronald told me he already looked upon me as his protege. They've assigned me to you, he said, and I'm delighted. When you came into my life, it was like a breath of fresh air. I'd had a bit of a low, with one thing after the other, but you've given me a new lease of life. The one thing turned out to have been the embarrassing expose in a Sunday tabloid of Major Ferguson, father of the Queen's daughter-in-law, visiting a dubious West End massage parlor, the Wigmore Club in Marylebone. As it appeared, was nothing more or less than a high-class brothel. The other was that this lapse resulted in the Major being dehorsed from his £28,000 a year post as deputy chairman of the Guards Polo Club, with all the attendant public humiliation that ensued. Anecdotes of sexual frolics with a redhead named Julia and a couple of bubbly blondes called Lorraine and Kim titillated readers over their breakfast cornflakes, backed by grainy photos of Major Ron furtively leaving the club. I remember reading about it at the time and vaguely wondering what effect it would have on the palace. A Sun cartoon by Franklin summed it up, showing the Queen in a digger's outfit shortly before her Australian tour, with a pair of crocodiles salivating at her feet, ordering the footman, "Tell Major Massage I'd like a chat with him." Some commentators surmised it was the end of Ronald's chances of a knighthood, though judging from the ennoblement of our politicians who have been caught in flagrante delicto, I could see no justice in that draconian suggestion. The Major was also in the running to be the Queen's Crown Equerry, a post that would have made him responsible for the day-to-day running of the horses, carriages, and limousines in the Royal Mews. Can't tell if he's off the phone. Sounds like it. Oh well, he'll holler if he needs me. But the Wigmore Club would be the subject I would raise with Ronald in more intimate and suitable surroundings than the tea lounge at Claridge's. He was still hopping mad at what he regarded as a far more heinous verdict on his private activities and a slur on his personal reputation, being stripped of his Guards Club title after the 33 years he had been a stalwart of Smith's Lawn, earning himself the nickname of Mr. Polo. The official reason, after a lot of toing and froing, had been his lack of business flair in handling the club's annual £750,000 budget. But Ronald insisted as he stirred 2 spoonfuls of sugar into his tea with more than customary vigor. "I was stabbed in the back, Leslie, I really was. That was a year ago, and I still haven't really got over it." At least he could see the funny side, as he recalled a quote from a fellow member. "If you eat with sharks, you must expect to get bitten." We both laughed, and Brian Morrison had come to his rescue to offer him the job at the Royal Berkshire. "And that's brought us together, which is something to be thankful for," he added. Ronald Ferguson was a full 25 years older than me. He's still on the phone. And we were separated not only by the gulf of age, but also by our upbringing. He the traditionalist, me the modern miss. Yet I found I could talk to him as if he were an equal in so many things. Vulnerable as I was, those early weeks drew us together and made us open our hearts, each finding in the other comfort and solace for the bruising knocks that life had thrown at us. The stiff upper lip mentality ingrained into so many of his class and background was there. But beneath the outer shell, I found a sensitivity that was irresistible. The Major was as tough as old riding boots on the outside, but he was a softy at heart. Here was a man who could weep openly when Sarah valiantly stood by him at the leaving ceremony at the Guards Polo Club, presenting her father with an inscribed polo stick, a man who would shed further genuine tears when he was forced to break the news to loyal retainers at his 700-acre Dummer estate that he was having to lay a number of them off. It had dawned on me early that here was simply a lonely man, someone who seemed so natural and, yes, sweet. And he was becoming so protective, and I already felt that he was like the father I had never really known. One afternoon in the tea lounge, with the early Christmas shoppers thronging the expensive shops of Bond Street a stone's throw away, Ronald leaned across his armchair, took my hand in his, and said earnestly, "Don't ever underestimate yourself, young lady. There is something special and different about you. That is very rare." I cannot with these lines. How old was she? I mean, did she say she was 26 when she was married? So she's in her 30s. Or is she 26 now? I'm so confused. I don't know. I think she was 26 when she got married. She's too old. She's too old for this, is what I'm saying. Well, okay, if she's 25 years, he is 60, we'll say. And she's 25 years younger. 35? That can't be right. Sorry, I'm struggling with math. Anyway, she's old enough to know better, I suppose. Oh yeah, she's very rare. Many people say I'm not the most intelligent of men, and perhaps that's true, but I'm loyal. By what definition? Like, really, by what definition is he loyal? Tell that to your wife. But I'm loyal and trusting, and I have been hurt so many times. Not because... oh my gosh. But I'm loyal and trusting, and I have been hurt so many times, perhaps because I'm naive in many ways. I have no words. He paused and took a deep breath. Then he said, "I want you to know I care about you, and I only wish things could be different. If only I were 20 years younger and circumstances were different, then perhaps I could have what I wanted." This girl, to be writing this book and to write all this out and not be like, oh, wait a second, like not see it all clearly what's actually happening. That's wild. There was a hunger in him and an intensity in his voice which disturbed me. His face suddenly looked almost haunted. I didn't answer him, and we finished our tea in silence. 2 days later, he got what he wanted. You hussy! Oh my lord. Is that not unbelievable? I mean, to write that all down and not have the presence of mind to, I mean, she probably has a ghostwriter, if I'm perfectly honest. I doubt she wrote this herself. But even so, to like, you know, be going over it and to not be like, now that I see it in black and white, it seems to me. Oh, well, you tell me what you think. Okay. Well, now I'm going to go. I have to edit that video a little bit, the one I'm going to upload. It's a movie, obviously. It's called, is it Aunt Mame or Auntie Mame? Anyway, I'm not putting the title up. I'm not doing an intro. I'm not doing anything. I'm just posting it to get past the copyright. Okay. Well, I will see you very soon. Oh, okay. Here. Bye. What?